Everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a six-game Major League Baseball slate that starts at 6:40 Eastern. It's a little bit earlier than our normal slates. Before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? Uh, let's go ahead and get into the slate. Now, pitching is pretty rough today. We only have a couple good pitchers, with Garrett Cole being against Detroit today. He's got a good ERA throughout the season, and he has high upside, but he's also been inconsistent throughout the year. We'll also look at Eflin against Miami. Now, Miami does have some bats that can do some things, but he's had quite a few 20 fantasy point games recently, though his floor is very low. As for the value guys, one of the few guys that has some upside today is Darius Vines for Atlanta. This will be his first career start in majors. He's been pretty good in the minors with a 2.86 ERA over the last 28 frames. Honestly, pitching is very rough today. It's going to be very difficult to find good pitchers on the slate, so I definitely recommend, probably paying up here. There's also good value throughout the bats today, so let's go and get into our bats. We're going to start with catcher, and we're going to look at Will Smith here for the Dodgers. Now, he hasn't hit the ball very well this lately, but he still has the home run potential. He hit one yesterday as well, and he had a good game as a result, and he's capable of that again today in a good matchup. Uh, we'll also look at Travis d'Arnaud, who is a core play for me today, assuming he starts today. He doesn't start most games, but when he does play, he does draw good home run potential. He hadn't played in about a week, in about 3 or 4 days, but he does have good metrics for this game, and this game in Colorado definitely gives him a lot of upside, and he has nice home run potential. Uh, Elias Diaz for Colorado also in play. He's hit the ball very well recently, though he hasn't done anything in this Atlanta series yet, but he is still capable of a good game here, and so he's a good contrarian option off of d'Arnaud. Maybe in the first base here, we're going to look at, let's see, we're going to look at Matt Olson first for Atlanta. He's hit pretty well recently, though his home runs have kind of fallen off the last week or so, but he's still managing some good fantasy point games, including some multi-hit games in that stretch and double-digit fantasy point games. I think he's a great option on the slate, and he's got a good situation here. Uh, then we'll look at Freddie Freeman as a contrarian option. He's a little bit cheaper. He's also hit the ball very well, though. He's only had one home run over the last 10 games, so that was 2 games ago. He does draw good metrics for this one, and he's hitting the ball really well with multiple multi-hit games over the last 10. Then we'll look at DJ LeMahieu for the Yankees. Now, he's kind of a cheap option today. He's had 4 home runs over the last 10 games. It's not really his style to be a big home run guy, but he is definitely capable of a good game here. He's hitting the ball pretty well, somewhat inconsistent throughout the season, but he is scoring a decent chunk of fantasy points, and he's nice and cheap. Then we'll look at Dan Vogelbach for the Mets. If he draws a start today, he'll be somebody that's got some nice home run or bust opportunity. He doesn't play every day, but when he does play, he's somebody to consider because he does draw that home run potential, and he does have a decent hitting record this season. So, not great, but not bad, and he's dirt cheap, which helps. Maybe in the second base, we'll look at Ozzy Albies for Atlanta. Now, he draws some good metrics for this game. He's just gotten back from injury. He's had 2 games. He hasn't really had a big game yet, but he has got good opportunity here in this Colorado series to have a big game. And it seems like every day a different guy for the Braves is kind of doing it. So maybe today is his day. Mookie Betts, though, is a good option today as he's hitting 500 over the last 10 games with 4 home runs and a couple stolen bases to boot. I think he's got some great metrics for this game. He's hitting the ball very well. He has multi-hit game potential and everything else. He's obviously super expensive, but he's a viable option on the slate. Gabby Torres is also in play for the Yankees. He's hit the ball pretty well recently with a 315 average. He's also had 4 home runs over that stretch, which is nice. He's had some big games even without the home runs, so that gives him some utility here, but he is high risk, high reward because typically he does need to have a home run to pay off. And then Isaac Paredes for Tampa Bay is a contrarian option. He's hit the ball very well. Also, recently with a 326 average, he's having some really big games with or without home runs as well, and so he draws really good metrics for this game and nice upside on the slate. Um, Maybe in the third baseman, we're going to start with Austin Riley, who's been somewhat inconsistent recently, but he still has some really big fantasy point games even without home runs. Though he does draw some risk with his price, but Atlanta's going to be a popular stack again today as they've been solid here in Colorado so far. Ryan McMahon is also in play for Colorado this time. He's a little bit pricey, but he has good metrics at home, and he draws a great matchup here against a young rookie pitcher who's going to have to go up against a team in a very tough situation when you're having to pitch in Colorado. So I do think he has some viability for a home run today, though he is high risk, high reward. Then we'll look at Hayes for Pittsburgh. Now, um, he's hit the ball extremely well recently with 3 home runs over the last 10 games. He's hitting 350 batting average. He's having some monster games with or without home runs, so I do like his potential here. He's also nice and cheap, and he's probably my favorite play on the slate for the third base position, and he is a core play as a result. Then we'll look at Bobby Witt for Kansas City, rather. I do like his upside today, though he has cooled off from a really crazy few weeks that he had. But he does draw good metrics here still, and he's hitting the ball very well, and he's going up against a pitcher that he should be able to do some things against. Then we'll look at Arcia for Atlanta. Now he's a nice cheap option for Atlanta. Ironically, though he doesn't always play, so you do want to make sure he does start today. But he's had some good games lately, and he doesn't need a home run to pay off. He's had a pretty good average over the season on the fantasy point perspective, and he does have some decent metrics, though he doesn't strike out much. He definitely has some potential today, and he's a little bit cheaper than a lot of Braves, though he's still priced up, which is kind of crazy. Then we'll look at Tovar for Colorado. Now, he has not hit the ball well recently, but he does draw good metrics at home, and he typically is a much better hitter at home, and he has home run potential as well. He even has a little bit of low end stolen base upside today if he can get on base, but I think Tovar is a good option on this slate. And then we'll look at Volpe for um, the Yankees. Now he's high risk, high reward. He's not hit the ball particularly well throughout the season, but he's hitting better recently, and the Yankees are cutting a lot of guys, and so he's going to get more playing time. Excuse me. He does have a little bit of home run upside as well, so he's definitely somebody to consider today on the slate, especially at shortstop, or where the home runs are usually a little bit harder to come by. Maybe in the outfielders, we'll look at Acuna, who, kind of should be a core play, but he's just absolutely monstering the ball lately. He's got big metrics here. He's averaging 14.5 fantasy points a game against Colorado this season, and that's only with 1 home run. He's managed a couple stolen bases as well. He does draw good metrics for this game, and he has a lot of upside. Aaron Judge also in play today, though he has hit the ball for home runs. He is striking out a lot, so do keep that in mind. But he's home runner best here. He's had 6 home runs over the last 10 games now. He's hitting the ball very well, and I like his upside as a result. Mookie Betts can also play here at second in the outfield. Corbin Carroll's also in play. He's hitting the ball extremely good. He's even getting stolen bases, home runs, etc. Throughout the last 10 games. He's at 455. I think he's a great option on the slate. He has high potential today, and he's a little bit cheaper than Judge, Betts, or Acuna. Then we'll look at Randy Arozarena for Tampa Bay. Sorry for butchering your name a little bit. He's hit the ball very well recently. He's really popped up as being a great hitter in the last few games, and he's had some really big games as a result. He doesn't even need a home run necessarily. He's also gotten some stolen bases and stuff, so he definitely draws some interesting upside in the slate, and he's a little bit cheaper than some of the other guys. Then we'll look at Ozuna for Atlanta. Now he is just absolutely murdering the ball lately with a 474 batting average over the last 10 games, including 6 home runs. He had a home run yesterday, and he's scoring a good amount of fantasy points. And when he's hot, he's usually somebody you definitely want to use. Michael Harris also in play. He's hit the ball very well recently, and he's averaging over 11 fantasy points a game now. But he definitely does have some stolen base upside and even some home run potential today. He does need to have a multi-hit game probably to pay off here, though, based on how he's played this season. Then we'll look at Nolan Jones for Colorado. He's been somewhat inconsistent throughout the year, but he does draw some home run metrics today. He hadn't had many good games recently, but he does have that upside for a home run, so he's kind of a contrarian Hail Mary play. Then we'll look at McCutchen for Pittsburgh. He's a little bit cheaper today, and he draws some good metrics, though he has been inconsistent throughout the season. He has some low-end upside from a home run perspective, but he can have multi-hit games occasionally where he does well, and I think this is a situation where he has that opportunity. Charlie Blackmon is nice and cheap today, and he's hitting the ball very well. He's had a couple rough games the last few, but he's gotten multi-hit games a lot, and he doesn't need a home run to pay off here. But being in Colorado, that does give him some upside to do that. But he is a little bit inconsistent from that perspective. And then kind of a Hail Mary option at the position is Pilar for Atlanta. He's just a nice dirt cheap option if he does draw the start today, which he did pretty good 2 days ago in Colorado where he scored 9 fantasy points. You don't need a ton of fantasy points out of him if he does draw the start today. But he has been pretty good against Colorado so far this year, and he has nice upside in this game. So you do have to make sure he plays, though. I do have a few sub $3,000 plays. Oswald Perez for the Yankees. He can play third base or shortstop. Dan Vogelbach for the Mets can play first base. Michael Busch for the Dodgers can play third base. Brenton Doyle for Colorado can play outfield. And then Alec Thomas for Arizona can play in outfield, and he's nice and cheap as well. So with that said, guys, this is a pretty small slate. It should be a good one, though. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, and have a nice day, guys.